you're all here because you've either heard Sister Aminah Assilmi speak already, or seen her videos, or heard about her. She's so very well known, I hardly feel that I need to introduce her to you. But I'm going to anyway, in case there's some who don't already know her wonderful story. Sister Aminah Assilmi first embraced Islam on the 21st of May 1977. She has degrees in education, recreation and broadcasting. She's the director of the International Union of Muslim Women and is on the advisory boards of several Islamic organisations, including the American Muslim Council, CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, and Amica International, which puts out a children's magazine called Kaleidoscope. Sister Aminah thinks her most important roles have been her roles as grandmother and mother, or should I say mother and grandmother, in that order. She has worked in many, many jobs because since her decision to wear the hijab, she's been denied employment in the job of her profession prior to her converting, which was in broadcasting. So they don't allow her to work in broadcasting, so she does many, many other things to help make ends meet. And she told me before we came up here tonight that she'd turned down 47 invitations to speak just during the month of November. So we understand that we're very lucky to have her with us tonight and very honoured that she's been able to accept our invitation. The last time I saw Sister Aminah Assilmi, she was walking through a bazaar, and every 3 steps she was 14 and 15-year-old Muslim women running up and giving her big hugs, and you can just see the adoration that they have for her and the love that she has for them. And truly she has inspired not only the young American Muslim girls who are growing up in the non-Muslim environment, but many, many women who've come to Islam through seeing her videos. So we know that she's a very inspiring woman, and we ask Allah to bless her and her family. And I'd like to welcome her here on your behalf tonight. Assalamu alaikum.
No, that's not enough. There is a lot of Muslims sitting in this room now. Please. Okay, let's try it again. Just wake up, get some energy. Assalamu alaikum. Well, a few of you I will say Jazakallah khair, because they returned better than what I gave, and this is the sunnah and the way we're supposed to do it. Now, first I have to warn you, she introduced someone else. That's not me, okay? And what she saw at the ISNA convention is she hasn't been there very often. See, that's the massive hug fest, and all of the Muslim women are hugging each other every few steps. It's not just me. I mean, we go to the conventions to hug each other. I don't know what the brothers do, but the women go there to get their hugs. So that's not just me, that's everybody is being hugged, you know. I was asked to come here tonight and talk to you about what? You can't hear me? Okay, let's try bringing it a little bit closer. The true liberator of women. And I'll be glad to do that. But I have to make a small qualification in that Islam is not just the true liberator of women, Islam is the true liberator of humanity. And we can't talk about how Islam liberated women without talking about how Islam has liberated men, has liberated parents, children, grandparents, and all members of society. Because the rights of one is dependent upon the right of the other. And Islam is showing the balanced path. But we will begin with those issues relating to women's rights, and you will soon discover that there's no way to separate or divide the women's rights from men's rights, women's rights from family rights, women's rights from society's rights. And you'll see how totally interdependent we are. Over 1,400 years ago, Allah delivered the Quran to Muhammad, son of Aminah. This Quran was protected for all times, will never be corrupted in any way. This was the miracle of this Quran. And this Quran is here today for all of us to be able to read and to learn and to study and to grow and to improve. In this book that was given to us over 1,400 years ago, through the prophet who became our example, our clarifier, our explainer, we learned many things. Number one, that the man and the woman were equally responsible for the continuation of the human race, and that the role of the woman was every bit as important as the role of the man. And you cannot claim that one is more important than the other, because indeed without the two it cannot occur, except in those miracles where Allah has chosen, as in the case of Adam, Eve, and Isa. Allah did free the woman of responsibility for the original sin. There was a rumor floating around, you know, that all sin came from women, because after all it was Eve who gave that apple to Adam. And it was through Eve that all sin came into existence. Well, the Quran came and revealed to us that both sinned, both were tempted, both sinned, both repented, and both were forgiven. One was not held more responsible for that act than the other. But in another area of the Quran, it speaks about the fact that on the day of judgment, a man must answer for himself, his wife, and his children, while the wife answers only for herself and her children. So a man has a degree of responsibility stronger than that of the woman. We won't make any judgments on that, just something to think about. Over 1,400 years ago, it was ordered that women be educated. It was ordered that all members of society be educated. And a prisoner of war could gain their freedom by teaching a Muslim to read and write. That's all that was necessary. This is how important education was considered. Indeed, the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ shows the importance of education, in that amongst all of the women that he married, there was only one who was not highly educated. All of the mothers of the believers were very educated women. They could read, they could write, they studied, they learned, they were brilliant minds. And his choice was the educated woman. Education is vitally important to everyone, and so we are told to seek knowledge if we must go into China or into the ends of the earth, to seek knowledge. Do not forget, in the quest for seeking knowledge, that the most important knowledge that you can have is the knowledge of the Quran, because all other knowledge is wasted if you don't know what to do with it. And it is the Quran and the Quran alone that gives us the guidance on what to do with other forms of knowledge. So never neglect the knowledge of the Quran and seeking knowledge of the Quran. That's first and foremost above everything else. Well, along with the command that women should be educated, Allah ordered that the woman's voice would be heard. That's right. Our opinions must be heard. Our evidence must be taken. We have a right to be heard. We were given also the right to own our own property, to conduct our own affairs, to dispose of or earn our own wealth and income. And that which we have, that which we earn, that which we inherit, whatever, is ours and ours alone, and no one else is allowed to touch it. We have absolute and complete control over that which is ours. We do not have to use our income to provide for ourselves in any way, because our fathers are to provide for us, or our brothers, or our husbands, or our uncles, or our male cousins. The financial responsibility lays upon the man, and yet the woman has absolute and complete control over her own wealth. And yet the woman has complete and absolute control over whatever business ventures that she may have. And even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam worked for a woman. He took his orders from a woman. He took his pay from a woman. And he never did anything that was against Islam. We go on in talking about true liberation and tell you that the woman also was given the right to choose her own husband. A woman cannot be married without her consent under any circumstances. There's a lot of advice given on how to choose the proper spouse for your daughter or for your son. I only wish Muslims of today followed any of them. I only wish the Muslims of today, our mothers and our fathers, gave the girls their right, the right that they were ordered to give to their daughters, and letting their daughters choose their own husbands. When looking for a husband for our daughters, we are supposed to look first at the religious nature of the individual. First and foremost, religious nature. And then you look towards things that increase compatibility. So you're going to look at educational level, you're going to look at social status, you're going to look at a lot of other things, but first and foremost is the religious standing of the individual and their understanding of Quran and Sunnah. And if you choose a son-in-law, no matter how much money he has, if he is not living by the Sunnah, your daughter will never be treated the way that she has a right to be treated. And your grandchildren will never have the joy that they have a right to. And it will be your responsibility because you have chosen your son-in-law for the wrong reasons. As well as a woman was given the right to choose her own husband, the woman was also given the right to divorce. That's right. A lot of people think that divorce is only a right of men. This is not true. You will read in the Sunnah that a woman came before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam requesting a divorce from her husband. And the Prophet questioned her, and she admitted that this was a very good man. He was a very kind man. He would provide for her very well. She just didn't like the way he looked. That's all. She didn't like the way he looked, and he granted her a divorce. Just on those grounds and those grounds alone. There's a lot of people who talk about, well, you know, divorce laws are not fair in Islam because all a man has to do is say, I divorce you 3 times and his divorce is finished. But a woman has to go before a qadi in order to get her divorce. Let's not confuse culture and cultural practices with what is in the Quran. Think about this a little bit as you're studying Quran and Sunnah. Okay, yes, a man pronounces 3 times divorce. He must wait until his wife is clean from her menses. And then he makes number 1, pronouncement number 1. Okay, so this is not done in a state of anger. He has to wait until she's clean from a second menses to make the second pronunciation, and he must wait until the third menses to make the third pronunciation. He must spend that entire 3 months. His divorce is not granted like this, and he can't stand there and say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. This is not a proper divorce, and it's not an acceptable divorce, and it is punishable. Now the woman, when the woman decides to seek divorce, she goes before the qadi. The divorce is granted, finished. I'm not saying this is the way it's practiced in countries. I'm saying this is the way it's written in the Sunnah. It's finished. Now, a man, when he takes his divorce, there's a possibility that he can go back with his wife. When a woman takes a divorce, it's irrevocable. Brothers, don't ever make your wives unhappy enough to divorce you, because you cannot have them again. Don't drive your wives to divorce. You may get upset, but don't drive your wife enough to make her get upset to divorce you. It's finished. But I ask you, which one is really easy? Not which one is practiced in different countries, but by the Sunnah, which one? I don't think the man has the privilege in this. Now, one of the wonderful things also is that the Quran has provided the woman with protection throughout her married life. He must treat her with compassion, kindness, and love. These are the words that are used in the Quran. Kindness, compassion, and love. He must work with her in mutual consultation, because on the day of judgment, the man is called to account for every unhappiness that he causes to his wife. Every bit of unhappiness the man is held responsible for. But ladies, don't think you get off. Okay? Because on the day of judgment, you're going to have to answer for the unhappiness you bring your husbands to. Okay? The Quran says we are beautiful garments, one for the other. And when you look at this wonderful, wonderful description of a marriage relationship, beautiful garments, one for the other, and then you think about what kind of garment you would wear above all other garments, and then you strive to be this kind of a garment for your wife or for your husband. You don't want to be a stiff and hard garment that they're eager to throw off. You don't want to be a heavy, overly decorated garment that's not comfortable to wear all the time. You want to be a garment that makes you feel warm, safe, secure, and loved. And this is the kind of garment you struggle to be for each other. The garment that demonstrates the ultimate compassion, the ultimate kindness, and the ultimate love. The garment that grows better with years and never wears out, and never grows old, and never becomes worn. This is the description of the husband and the wife. And the relationship between the husband and wife is second only to the relationship between the Prophet and Allah. That's how important the relationship is. And Allah has protected the marriage by calling us into arbitration whenever we have problems. We don't just rush off to get a divorce. We must go through arbitration. And the arbitration is accomplished not only with the man and the woman, but there's the man, the woman, her representative, and his representative. And all of these sit together to try to resolve the problem. 90% of problems between husbands and wives are failure to communicate. Allah knew this. This is why we have the arbitration. Many of the arbitrations that I have sat in on, the husband and the wife are fighting, they're not listening to each other, and they're sure that he wants this and she wants that, and you sit down and listen to them and they both want the same thing. But they're not listening to each other and they're not communicating. So when we go through arbitration, we can save the marriage and make the marriage better and make the marriage stronger. Of all those things which are permitted, that which is hated most is divorce. But divorce may occur where it is necessary, because Allah knows that it is better for two people to separate than to live in discord and unhappiness, because their unhappiness will come down upon the children, come down upon the society and generate more problems. So it is better to separate than to live in discord. Now, in the case of divorce, again, the women were protected, the children were protected, and the man was protected. A divorce in Islam must be amicable. None of this he said, she said stuff. Okay? You are not allowed to talk bad about your ex-husband or your ex-wife. Whatever went on between the two of you is between the two of you and is not to be spread to the rest of the world. Period. You can't say something good, you don't say anything at all. Such wisdom in this. Because when a man and a woman separate, usually what is occurring is they are promptly telling every bad thing they ever imagined about each other. And who is the one that suffers? The child. The child who loves both the mother and the father. The child who needs both the mother and the father. The child who has a right to both the mother and the father. And these two so-called adults are ripping each other apart so much that they forget the needs of the child, and the child is the one that pays the price. Now remember that another injunction tells us that we're not supposed to be listening to the backbiting. So if you hear somebody complaining about how bad their ex-husband or their ex-wife was, you're not allowed to listen to it. You have to get up and walk away, because on the day of judgment you will have to answer for that. And this is a protection also for the community, because the community then is not swept into the uglinesses of divorces, and people are not required to take sides and do the other things that will cause it to grow and get worse and worse and worse. You see how things are all protected? Allah does not protect one, He protects everyone. You can see where He protects the woman. In this He protects the child, in this He also protects the community. Now there's another wonderful thing that the Western world needs to look at when it comes to Islamic divorce. And that is in the realm of responsibility. See, in the United States, when there's a divorce, there is a child support payment ordered. And the child support payment will be anywhere from $50 a month to $350 a month. I mean, even $350 a month doesn't pay a child's expenses, and yet some fathers are only asked to pay $50 a month for their child's expense. After divorce, a woman's income usually drops by 70%, and a man's income increases by 70%, because the major support of the child is left to the woman. And the child is made to suffer even more, because the woman must now leave the child in order to go out and work, in order to feed and clothe the child. And so the child is now left in daycare or with whoever the mother can find, and too often left alone. And the children turn to gangs, drugs, alcohol, to whatever they can find in each other or anyone else to make up for that which they are missing. But in Islam, the man's responsibility is 100%. No $50, no $200, no $500, no $600. The responsibility is 100% for this child. 100%. The man must provide everything that the child needs. And that includes his companionship and his guidance. Money is not enough. You see how Islam has liberated? We have peaceful separation with no one suffering. By the man taking 100% responsibility for his child, it makes it possible for the woman to stay at home and continue to be the mother that this child has a right to have. It makes it possible for this child not to suffer neglect. So a man and a woman cannot pull together amicably. The child will not be the victim not by Islamic law. Oh, there are so many ways that the Quran has liberated us. So very many ways. And we can sit and talk about them forever. And I don't know if I could ever itemize all of them. But I don't want to keep you waiting forever for me to finish. So I'll cover just a couple more. All right? These are some that people frequently hold up as red flags. Okay, we'll start with inheritance. Evidence that Allah holds a woman only half as valuable as a man. Inheritance. I hear this so often, and unfortunately from Muslims as well as from non-Muslims. Yes, indeed, the female will inherit 1/2 of what the male will inherit. But who has all the financial responsibilities in the family? The man, right? Now, I have 2 sons and a daughter. My daughter is not concerned about the fact that her brothers will inherit twice as much as her, because she knows that out of their share, they have to provide for her and for her children. Out of her share, she can do whatever she wants to, take a vacation, buy jewelry, a car, a house. She doesn't have to use it for anyone else, not for her children, not for herself, not for her brothers. But her brothers have to provide for her whatever she needs, and for her children whatever they need. I mean, this is if something happens to her husband. They must spend of their inheritance to provide for their wives, for the rest of their family who may be needy, and for needy relatives and neighbors. And yet the woman has no obligation. Another point is that inheritance is not earned income. When it comes to earned income, again, Allah, in His infinite wisdom, has liberated all of humanity by declaring equal wages. For earned income, it is equal. But inheritance is not earned income. This is a charity. This is a gift. It is more appropriate that charity would go to the one who had the greatest need. Therefore, more to the male children than to the female children, because the responsibility on the female is much less than what it is on the male. Islam is the only system, whether religious or political, that protects a woman's right to inherit. In most systems, nothing is done about inheritance, and inheritance is destroying families left and right as they fight over who gets this and who gets what and who got more and who got less. The Quran, in mapping out the inheritance, covers not only what the children inherit, but what every other relative would inherit. It is all in there. It is indisputable. So families cannot be destroyed if they follow what is written in the Quran. Now remember, we're not talking about what happens in your cultures. We're talking about what is in the Quran, nothing else. There's no way for families to be torn apart over inheritance when they follow what's in the Quran. One more right, one that is very special to me, and that's the right to hijab. Okay? Hijab is a woman's right. And I don't like it when a person comes up to a Muslim woman and says, "Why do you wear hijab?" or "Why do you cover like that?" And they say, "Because God commanded it." That is not enough of an answer. You need to let people know this is one of our rights. The Quran says to identify ourselves as being Muslim. What greater thing than to be identified as being a Muslim? When I am identified as being a Muslim, this means that I know my worth. I know my value. I will be treated with dignity. I will be treated with respect. I will be treated with that which Allah has granted me. My hijab tells the world that I know my value. My hijab also opens the door to dawah. Identify yourself as being a Muslim. When I walk down the street, everyone knows I'm someone different, something different, and they may approach me in a variety of different ways. But we have a conversation starter right there, and then we can pick up and go further. Now, one of the common ones occurs when I go into a store and somebody will say, "What are you?" You know? Now we know what they want to know is, why are you dressed so weird? Okay, that's what they really want to know. But in studying the Sunnah, you see how the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used humor in dealing with people. He used humor a great deal, so you go ahead and respond with humor. One 7-Eleven store where I was stopped, and the woman said that to me. Loud voice. My ears are covered. Maybe I'm deaf. Loud voice. "And what are you?" "I'm a woman." You know, I mean, I know what she wants. "I'm a woman." She says, "But, no, what are you?" I look down at myself and I'm a woman. You know? And then I stand there and, "Oh, you mean the way I'm dressed? Oh, I'm a Muslim." And in this one instance, the lady looked at me and she says, "But you're not black." I looked at myself and I said, "Oh my God, you're right." Okay? A little bit of humor. But I was identified as being at least something different. Now I identify myself as being Muslim. Now I have a chance to talk about Islam. And when I looked around that store, by the way, I was the only white person there. I was the only white person there. And everybody in the store is laughing. I mean, everybody was laughing. And all these people came up to the front, and we got involved in a conversation that went on for another 2.5 hours. After which I gave them my cards and the numbers of friends that I had in that particular area, because I was just a passerby. I didn't live there. I was a passerby. I didn't even live in that state. I was just driving through. I met that woman a few years later, and she's a Muslim. That clerk became a Muslim. Okay? What was really fun was she told me, she describes this one guy who had been buying milk that was in the store that day. They're getting married. He's a Muslim too. And all from being identified as a Muslim woman. I feel sorry for the brothers on 2 counts. Who's to know what they are? I mean, you look at most of them and they could pass for, they could be Italian, they could be Spanish, they could be anything. Who's to know? Because most of them aren't identifiable. I feel sorry because they don't get an opportunity to demonstrate the courage that a Muslim woman has. Because it takes profound courage to walk out in hijab when you're living in an environment where women in hijab are persecuted. That takes true courage. And the woman is the weaker. I'd like to see my dear brothers go to work in a thobe. Or their bala and gutra. I'd like to see that. How many of them would be working if they had to wear that? Not too many, I think. But women have more courage than they give us credit for. We go to the store, We go to the hospital. We go to the schools. Everything we do in our hijab, inshallah, proudly, inshallah. I want the world to know that I am a Muslim woman. I want the world to know that I am a Muslim woman. I had a feminist ask me a few weeks ago if I was a different woman if I took my hijab off. I told her no. I'm not different. It doesn't change me. She says, why do you have to wear it then? Only one reason. I want to be identified by everyone I meet as a Muslim woman. I want there to be no confusion, no doubt in anyone's mind. That's a Muslim woman. This is my right. And I will fight for this right. And I will maintain this right. Allah gave it to me, and no one is taking it away from me. Another right that is frequently confused, okay? Somewhere along the line, people got confused on the issue of polygamy. And someone got the idea that this was for men. And polygamy is not for men. It's for women. Yeah, see, think about it. Think. When you get married to a woman, you almost always get a mother-in-law. One wife, one mother-in-law. 2, 3, 4, father-in-laws, brother-in-laws. Not only that, but on the day of judgment, you have to answer to Allah for any unhappiness you've caused your wife. 1, 2, 3. Ooh. What is the man getting out of polygamy now? Could someone refresh my memory? Now we've got financial responsibility. The man is 100% responsible for all of his wife's needs. 1, 2, oh my. Again, what was it that the man was getting out of having more than one wife? You see, that's the confusion. They got this Christian concept, you know, that God only did things for men. God didn't do everything for men. Polygamy is only of benefit to women. It's the woman who benefits. We have a sister that we can trust completely, that we never have to worry about anything with. We have a sister that's there to help us in all times and in all ways. More and more women are choosing their own co-wives, and the marriages are working better because the wisdom of the woman in choosing her co-wife is that she recognizes that this is someone she has to share her life with, and she chooses someone who's compatible to everyone. While the man in his little vision there frequently chooses for the wrong reasons and chooses 2 people who are incompatible. Now don't get from this that I'm saying that men are not allowed to have more than one wife. Polygamy serves a very valuable social function. Polygamy is something that is good. Polygamy is something that is necessary. Polygamy is something that no one can forbid. You do not have the right to forbid the practice of the polygamy. Not under any circumstances. You have a right to educate each other on what the true practice is supposed to be, but you cannot forbid a person. Let's look at some of the social benefits of polygamy, okay? Now, if you were to look at, I don't know, here in Canada, do you do censuses? This government does a census? Okay, you might check the Canadian census. I'm familiar with the census in the U.S. And every year I'm checking at the updates from the Census Bureau just to see if things are changing. And things are moving right along the way each year. Increasingly, there's more women than there are men. And the ratio continues to increase, more women than men. Islam, unlike other religions, recognizes that women have rights and needs other than just for food and shelter. And those rights and needs can only be met in marriage. Only through marriage. Now, if you have more women than men, and you take and you marry every man to a woman, and you've got 20 million women out here without a husband, but they still have the same rights and needs, what is supposed to happen with these 20 million women? Some people say they can live a life of deprivation, do without. It has been proven that women who live in deprivation in this way have more psychological problems and more physical problems. We were designed to be pairs. We were designed to complete each other. We were designed to be interdependent. So this is not acceptable. There was a nun once who told me, well, women should turn to each other for that. Well, I'm sorry, but we're Muslims. We don't accept lesbianism. It's not acceptable to turn to another woman for gratification. So we won't even discuss that. The option that is practiced most is that one woman will still the husband of another woman. But we still have 20 million women without husbands, only now we have children affected and the community is affected. And it becomes like a disease that tears everyone apart. The last is that we can want for our sister that which we want for ourselves. And that's what a woman wants. A woman wishes for her sister that which she wishes for herself. Polygamy is a scary thing, not only for men, but for women as well. It makes women nervous, it makes men nervous, extraordinarily. But it's something that you all need to take a look at, because there is nothing that was permitted by Allah that is not good for us in some way. Now, most men cannot handle a polygamous relationship and will gladly admit it. I got engaged in December after, what's it been, 15, 16 years. I got engaged in December. And things were going along great until I introduced him to my co-wife. And you know, at first he's going, okay, sure, uh-huh. You know, and he sits and he talks to her and he's talking to me and he says, you are really serious? And I said, yes, you know, she's going to be my co-wife. And he says, do I have any say in this? And I looked at her and she looked at me and we said in unison, no. I want a co-wife. This is who I want. If you want to marry me, I want a co-wife. Well, he chickened out. I mean, he just plain chickened out. We stayed engaged for a couple of months and talked about it, and he finally says, Aminah, he says, I'm scared to death of this. I'm scared to death of this. He says, I'm just afraid that I might not be just between you. And I can't take that chance. We both went, oh, well. He lives in Mecca. It would have been so nice, you know, visit the Kaaba on a daily basis. Oh, well. But see, men are as afraid of polygamy as women are, if they're wise. If they're wise. But you should remember that polygamy does not benefit the man. It only benefits the woman. Now, there's many things that we can talk about in regards to how Islam has been the ultimate liberator of women, of men, of children, of parents, of family, of society, of community. And we can be here as long as you want to tonight, and I'll try and answer all the questions that you put to me as best I can. But I cannot leave my little podium here without saying my 2 cents on something that is extremely important to me. Okay? I really want everyone to listen very carefully to what I have to say at this moment. Okay? Sisters, please, just 1 minute. If you didn't want to listen about the women, I let you off on that. I won't let you off on this. Okay? I want everyone just to listen to me for 2 seconds or more. Okay? You are Muslim. Muslim means that you live in submission to Allah. You cannot live in absolute submission to that which you are not familiar with. You, as Muslims, must return to reading the Quran and reading the Hadith, studying the Sunnah, and applying it to your lives. On the day of judgment, you will answer to Allah for what you have done and what you have not done, and that includes seeking knowledge and applying the knowledge to your life and your existence with each other. At this time, we, the best of ummas, suffer the greatest level of persecution. At this time, we, the best of ummas, live on the lowest incomes worldwide. At this time, we, the best of ummas, have power not over ourselves or anyone else. There is only one reason. The blame does not lie with anyone else except with each one of you. We cannot blame the Jews, we cannot blame the broadcasters, we cannot blame the Christians, we cannot blame the governments, we cannot blame political systems. We could not be conquered from without until we destroyed ourselves from within. And we cannot return to power again until we build that which must be built from within first. We must know Quran and Sunnah. We must apply Quran and Sunnah in every aspect of our existence. No more excuses. No more excuses. No more laying the blame on anyone else. It's us. We must become Muslims. People say we need cultural basis as a point of reference in communicating with each other. This is what they use to justify to me. This is why we identify ourselves as Egyptian, as Pakistani, as Indian, as Jordanian, as Palestinian, as whatever. We have one point of reference and only one point of reference. Yo boys, hello, hi, I'm here, microphone's mine, you want to talk, we'll talk later. Get his attention and let him know I'm talking straight to him. Hello. The young man in the black coat, hi. Yeah, you. Don't look behind you. You, okay? This applies to you. We must identify ourselves by the only point of reference that exists, Allah, Islam. We must not allow ourselves to be separated anymore by artificial boundaries and artificial identities. Allah did not make you Egyptian. Allah did not make you Jordanian. Allah did not make you Palestinian. Allah did not make you Pakistani. Allah made you Muslim. There is only one point of reference necessary for a Muslim to communicate to another Muslim. That is Allah and Quran and Sunnah. We cannot allow ourselves to continue to be ripped apart and to be destroyed from within by accepting artificial boundaries and by allowing anything but Allah as our point of reference. And so before I go to question and answer tonight, I am begging you to take time every day to read Quran. 10 ayahs a day. That's all. 10 little ayahs a day. I'm not saying sit down and read the whole book. 10 ayahs a day. It takes no time. 10 ayahs a day. Re-establish your connection to Allah. Re-establish your identity as a Muslim. Read Quran. And read Hadith. If you want to read all of the other books, alhamdulillah, fine. But don't forget Quran every day. This book testifies for or against you on the day of judgment. Don't put your Quran in a pretty box on a shelf. This book testifies for or against you as to not only did you read it, but did you apply it. Do not allow your children and your grandchildren to grow up in oppression. Do not allow your children and your grandchildren to suffer as we have. Return to the only point of reference needed by a Muslim, Allah. I thank you very much for inviting me here. And I won't apologize for my tirade, because that's probably the most important thing I had to say tonight. I want you to remember, as Muslims, all praise belongs to Allah. And if anything good has been said tonight, this good came from Allah. If there were mistakes, those mistakes were made because I am a human being. And I ask you to forgive me for those. Again, Jazakallah khairan for giving me this time.
To do that which you do, that is to promote effective dawah. What reason should be given to a non-Muslim to convert to Islam?
Okay, doing dawah effectively sometimes can be very complicated, because a lot of people want to jump in there and explain to the non-Muslim everything that's wrong about what they're doing and why they shouldn't believe what they believe and why, tell them how haram they are. When actually, if we study the Sunnah, you'll find a much better way of doing dawah. And that is by living Islam. Let them learn Islam through your conduct and the way that you are in every aspect of your life. Be sure that you greet everyone with a smiling countenance, as is required in Islam. Be sure that you are treating people with compassion, kindness, and consideration. Be sure that you are being in the right way with your children, with your wife, with your husband. Be sure that you are conducting your affairs in the proper way, that you are dressed properly, that you are behaving properly. Be sure that you have the knowledge to answer any question they bring to you. And from there, shwaya, shwaya, slowly, slowly. There was an old saying I heard when I was young that I never understood until after I got involved in dawah. The hungry man is always eager to eat. Think about it. The hungry man is always eager to eat. You give them a little bit at a time. If they ask about hijab, don't tell them why we pray 5 times a day. Answer the question about hijab and let it go. If they ask a question about another thing, answer it and let it go. They want a short answer. They don't want a 2-hour tirade. But always remember, again, studying the Sunnah and the way you approach them with kindness, with humor where it's appropriate, with patience and tolerance. Remember that if you attack, they will defend. And when they defend, they cannot hear. So don't bother to attack them. Don't point out what they're doing wrong. Give them the truth and give them time to accept it. Becoming a Muslim after living your life as something else is not an easy decision to make. I know, I made it. And it was not an easy decision to make. It's scary. You have no idea how terrifying it is to someone to think that possibly they have been on the wrong path their whole life. And not only to think that, but to live in fear that if they go to the right path, their families and friends may reject them. It's a very serious thing. So don't push them. Give them a chance. Give yourself a chance. And let it come slowly. And what was the other half of that? With American Indians, and if so, can you describe the experience? See, when I set out to do dawah, that's okay, he's all right, let him go. He can come up here and talk. I'm cool with it. Okay. Look, when I go out to do dawah, I don't set out to do dawah. I do not set out to convert anyone to Islam. But every human being that I meet, no matter who they are, is going to be introduced to Islam. Not by me even saying the word Islam, Allah, Muslim, or anything else. They will be introduced to Islam through my presence and the way that I will conduct myself. I don't set out to do dawah with a particular group of people. That does not mean, I haven't gone out to Native Americans to try and bring them to Islam. However, quite a few have come to Islam. And it hasn't been a hard journey for them if they are the same heritage that I am from, because the first wave of Islam in North America came through the Cherokee. Islam was in North America in the year 850, brought here by Senegalese sailors. The second wave of Islam came with the slave trade, but the first Muslims in North America were the Cherokees. I happen to be one. And many of our traditions and many of the things that we do are still very much in line with Islam. And so for many of my people, we're finding, oh, now I know why we did that. Now I understand why we did. Oh, okay, that makes sense now. So we're refinding the Islam, and many of the Cherokee people are coming very excitedly as they rediscover the roots of what we have been doing as just cultural practices and discovering what they really are. But I don't set out to convert any group of people, so I can't tell you how to reach a particular group of people. I reach people one person at a time. And I think it's the only way to go, is one person at a time, one-on-one.
Can you please give your advice on exactly how to make parents understand that it is permissible to choose one's own husband and wife, especially parents who are firm believers in the concept of arranged marriage? How can this be done without creating discord or disappointment? How does one approach one's parents?
After I answer, I wish I had an answer for this. This is one of the things that's breaking my heart, because I see the problems that are happening. And I don't know that there's anything you can do to change your parents' ways and their attitudes. because no matter how much evidence you will give them to show them that they are wrong, they will not change from their cultural ways. And unfortunately, the best I can do is to tell you, don't do it to your children. You can show in Hadith and you can show in Quran that the child has the right to say that they do not want to marry someone or that they want to marry someone. They have that right. That does not mean that your parents will change where they stand on it by any means because the cultural practice is too strong. And I have no answer, no way to solve the dilemma except for beg you to not do it to your own children, to remember yourself and not do it to your own children. We live in times of enormous ignorance amongst Muslims. Enormous ignorance. I'm sorry, that's the best I can do for you. Just say don't do it to your own children. You can try to show them Quran and Hadith, but most of the parents I've tried to talk to won't accept it because it's not their cultural practice.
Can you please comment on the dilemma faced by our younger women? In high schools, they are bombarded by messages to be worldly, physically perfect, etc. As well, they are forced to interact with male students in group work. How should they feel strong at a time they are most vulnerable?
Actually, you know, the guys are going through a lot too. They're not as apparent to the other people because they don't dress properly. I mean, some of them wear bathing suits and tight jeans, you know. I know, I've seen them do it. But, you know, they go through a lot. They have to make choices all the time. They have to make choices if they're going out for athletic events, for any kind of sport. Are they going to wear the clothing that is required by the school, or are they going to fight the school? So they have to fight too. The girls have the additional burden because they're picked on a great deal. Okay? I mean, we have our scarves tugged on and pulled. We're called ragheads. I mean, all kinds of different things. And I think a lot of parents really are not aware of the pressures that their junior high and high school girls are facing. Teachers do not trust children who will not look them in the eye. And yet, in the Islamic culture, it's not acceptable to look someone of the opposite sex in the eye. As a Native American, it's not acceptable in my culture either. Only as a Native American, it goes even deeper that a child is not allowed to look an adult in the eye. It's forbidden. And sometimes you have to be there to go and talk to the teachers. You may need to conduct seminars and training programs for teachers in your area to acquaint them with the special needs of your children. But you must be involved in a positive way with the school and in support of your child. You must be your child's advocate. You must know your child's right, and there are legal rights that your child has, and you have to be there to support them. If you don't think you can do it, you find someone who can, but don't leave your child without support. The kids need to learn to cling together, to come together as much as they can, and to find also ways of finding other people to stand up for them if your parents won't do it. I admire so much our Muslim youth because they not only suffer the persecution in the school from the people who do not understand Islam and Muslims, they suffer the persecution in their homes and in their families by the families who do not and will not accept the pressures and tragedies of their lives in the real world that they live in here.
So a couple of questions on the same. There's a couple of questions on the same theme. According to Islam, can women work outside the home if they have young children and even if their husband's working? So they work and so they leave the children with the babysitter. Is that all right?
Okay. A woman is allowed to own a business, to conduct her business affairs, and cannot be prevented from whatever is necessary for her to own, operate, conduct her own business affairs in any way. All right? Now, in Islam, we're supposed to have extended families, all right? We have special problems here because we don't have the extended families, and people are afraid of polygamy, and so they have no choice but to leave their children with strangers in daycare centers and other things like this. I don't know that it is forbidden, but I do know that on the day of judgment, you will answer to Allah for all of the negative things your child will learn while in the care of another person. You will answer on the day of judgment for the insecurity that your child develops because the parent was not there to love them and hold them and comfort them and encourage them and help them to develop as full human beings. You will answer to Allah for all of the deficiencies that will develop in your child because your child has to depend on himself or herself more than on the parent who wasn't there. And brothers, you will answer to Allah if you are not there for your children in the same way. Now, I do know parents where both are going to school and studying, and they take different shifts. So when he's in class, she's at home. When she's in class, he's at home, so the children are never left with a babysitter. And it works well. They're doing all right. They're getting their degrees, which is important to them both. But the child can never be neglected. And the child needs two parents involved in their upbringing. It is not solely the responsibility of the mother. The father is supposed to be there hugging, loving, kissing, changing, washing, putting to bed, reading stories, teaching, whatever. It's a father's responsibility to be a parent as much as the mother's.